they just worship technology.
Sounds like the human race in the modern day.
Almost, except if the human race gouged out their own eyes and put laser beams in them.
It's only a few years away from that.
Yeah.
Elon Musk is working on it.
Like 38 millennium, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
So this is Mechanicus. On the very surface, like I said, it's XCOM. So what you're seeing now is basically I'm starting a mission. These are the two tech priests that I take on, and there will be a lot of parallels to XCOM in this video. These are your soldiers. These are called your canticles, and these are basically your buffs for the match. So you can have things like +1 resistance to energy attacks, +1 damage to physical, +3 defense, all that sort of stuff. And then when you launch a mission, you get into the Nurse Sphere. Now the Nurse Sphere is just like a nerdy Warhammer word. It's basically how the tech priests and the Mechanicus talk to each other, like, because they're all robot people, they talk in robot language.
It's the internet for them.
It's basically like brain Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
But this is what you see when you're setting up your mission. So I've launched onto the planet now, and we're fighting the Necrons, which are basically an ancient race of robot dudes, and they're not happy, and they're here to mess things up. So I've launched onto their world, and you start off with this kind of tactical map, and you explore all the rooms that are connected to the starting room of this tactical map, and you'll get things like emergent story, like here I've found like an artifact, and you get to decide what to do with that artifact. Now that has gained me data in the short term, but in the long term it's also going to affect your relationship with the other Mechanicus that you're working with. One of them is super strict and doesn't like you messing with any technology. The other one is super lenient and likes to absorb alien technology into their own, which is usually a big no-no. So it'll end up affecting your relationship with your own team.
Right, so that's interesting because XCOM, it allows you to customize characters and invest in them, but there's not a lot of interpersonal interactions between them. So that's what distinguishes this from pure XCOM, right? Yeah,
there's a lot of choice in what you do. On the surface level, like I say, when you're actually getting into the combat, it has taken a lot of hints from, or it would be recognizable from XCOM. But you could go through these missions and there could be a chance that you don't actually find anyone. But what you see in the top left is the awakening meter. And because you're on a Necron world, the longer that you stay on this world, the more Necrons wake up and the more dangerous they become and the more they chase you and the more damage they do. But eventually you will come into a fight. I've cut the loading screen there just for time's sake. But now obviously it's gone all green, which usually means the Necrons have turned up.
So now we're finally in the actual meat of the gameplay.
Yeah, this is what the combat looks like. And the combat, it's very interesting what they've done with it. So you can see those 3 gold cogs on the left of these Necrons there. That is your cognition points. And basically the way that it's very, very connected to the lore of Warhammer. So much so that they've actually got Ben Counter. If you're a Warhammer fan, he's written some really good books. So it's like they've got their nerd chops basically. So it's super deep into the lore. So the idea being is that your tech priests, they're not the best at fighting. So first of all, they've brought in 2 of them. You get a little like entourage almost, depending on what items you have, or what upgrades you have, or what perks you have. You might have a perk to bring in a soldier. You might have a perk to bring in a servitor. You might have a perk to bring in any suite of additional
support units.
So you can have up to 16 units on the field. But the idea is that the Mechanicus, they're based around technology. So in order to act properly, they need information, they need data. So those cognition points, you need to scan those in order to do your best moves, your best attacks to move further. So in the bottom left, you don't see it on this character because he's a very basic character. He's one that's pretty much expendable. It's the guys in the red robes that you need to really focus on. You can see here at the bottom, the blue ones are free, but the ones that are grayed out, you need the cognition points to use, and that represents, just like in the wide lore sense, that the more information that the Mechanicus has, the more powerful they become. So once you scan those, you can use your much more powerful attacks.
That's an interesting kind of twist that you don't see that often. It kind of reminds me of resource gathering from traditional RTS, and even a bit of like MOBA stuff where you don't automatically start off with the most powerful attacks. You need to level up as you go along by killing creeps and enemy heroes, and then you unlock the more powerful stuff. So it's a nice like strategic consideration on top of like maneuvering and finding the best way to approach each skirmish.
Yeah, and while it's like I said, it's top down, controlling units. So the instant parallel is XCOM. The way the moment to moment gameplay is quite different. Like there's no cover, for example. Everything's done on like saves and chances to hit. So I was talking to them about it, and I said, how have you balanced that? Because most attacks will have 100% chance to hit, and they said they did that because you want it to be fun, right? And there's nothing like one of the biggest frustrations in XCOM was getting right up close to an enemy, having a 95% chance to hit, and then completely whiffing it. So if you want to dodge an attack, or if you want an attack to miss, then you have to interact with it in some way. You have to use an ability or have a very slim chance to roll. So it's much more action focused, but like I said, there is still a big element of strategy when you're deciding what abilities to use, because there's a finite number of cognition points. So you might scan all these cognition points, use your super powerful attacks, which are now on the bottom, they're orange, but you could blow all your powerful attacks, and then like a Tomb Lord turn up, and you're just stuck with a load of like trash tier attacks. So that's really where the brunt of the strategy comes in, and it's what abilities do your guys have, what abilities do the Necrons have, how do they play in tandem. At first it seemed quite basic, but then when he was explaining to me the more units you get and just the sheer number of just responses that you can create, it did start to get more and more tactical. But I thought without the cover system, I was like, can it be really that tactical? But I didn't find myself missing anything like that at all.
It seems to provide you with more of a reason to go a little more exploring and finding, because obviously you're gonna, the further out you go, the higher of a chance you have to unlock cognition points and that kind of business. So it's kind of like a split focus thing for me from the looks of it. Like you want to have in XCOM, the way I play is everything I do is oriented around maneuvering around enemies and finding the best like points to attack. They have objectives, but they're like, you usually fulfill those objectives as you're taking out enemies. Yeah. This is more like, if I've got 16 people to, keep an eye on, I can send some of them off to unlock cognition points, while the others kind of engage the enemy and then like swap them back and forth. So it seems like they're trying to add a little more strategic layers to it.
And there'll be some levels where you have to like flip switches to unlock the rest of the level, like to create bridges, or you'll be chased by infinite waves of enemies that you just can't escape. And at that point, you will get to a point where you have to sacrifice your lesser units, your expendable ones like the servitors and the Scutari, to get your robed guys, your actual priests, to where they need to be.
Right.
And it again plays to the lore of Warhammer that like it's pretty crap out there, so some of your guys are going to die.
Right.
And that's just completely unavoidable, and it's just something you should accept right off the bat.
Right.
But he mentioned do you ever get into like a cycle when you played XCOM games where you faced a really tough level, all your high level dudes die, but then you need to play that level, but now you're stuck with lower level dudes or recruits, which makes it harder, and you're stuck in this cycle until eventually you're pretty screwed.
Yeah, you just give up.
There's like an element in 40k where these Mechanicus can basically just take a chip out of their brain and put it in someone else if they've got the right resources. So to get out of that kind of infinite death loop, you are able, if any of your main guys do die, you do get a chance to resurrect them. So it's not like the complete end of the world, but you will have to use like some very rare resources.
And is it like instant, like you get the chip straight away, or is it like recover the chip first from the dead body?
We didn't actually see it. This was like a concept that will be in the final game, because this is like super early alpha, as you can see from the handy little watermark on the bottom right.
Yeah, it's worth emphasizing that they did stress that a lot of this is placeholder stuff. They want to make it like a little the UI and that
the
kind
UI,
of stuff.
the fonts, the animations on the tactical maps, all super early. I was actually impressed with like how early they were happy to show it. 'Cause it's not often we get to see a game in this extreme early stage, but they're also very confident in it. So that's a bonus as well.
Yeah.
But one thing worth noting is that the campaign is only ever going to be 30 missions long. So at the start, like they didn't want to give away too much of the story, but at the start you've turned up on this world, and the Necrons are about to do some ancient robot stuff again, about to pop off, and you get 30 missions in order to level up enough, gather enough resources, gather enough equipment, take on any mini bosses, and then on the 30th turn, like that's it.
Yeah.
Like you better be ready because Big Man Tomb Lord's coming for you.
It's run based and kind of like you want to introduce that replayability where the next time you do it, if you fail, you'll be like, maybe I'll try this route instead, not take on this boss instead focus on growing this character over here and see if I can. That's an interesting way to introduce replayability.
And the missions didn't seem that long. You can do like 2 of them in like maybe 10 minutes, and as you get more powerful, you'll be obviously more confident to fight them. This is one of the new enemies they showed me, the flayed ones, and the way they act is they will always target the unit with the least health, so they were all charging that one guy, and then they just like now that guy's like, oh, I'm screwed
next
then.
in line.
But you mentioned replayability. They may be, because there's 2 factions that you're kind of working alongside. One of the factions was literally called Metallica, and they're from a planet that's just all coated in metal, which is like the most rad shit I've ever heard. Because there are like 2 siding factions, there may be an element of if you side with one faction, you'll replay, the other faction will abandon you for your second run, and you'll have to kind of recreate your kind of party. But you'll be able to customize your guys completely. At the start of the game, you'll be able to choose the colors of your guys if you want to do like bright pink robes, knock yourself out. If you want to stay quote unquote true to the Warhammer Games Workshop colors, then you can be red. But you can completely customize on a cosmetic level, but also on an item level. So this guy Jeremiah, he's got a big axe, and then he's got a cannon attached to his back. They wear these massive backpacks. But as I mentioned before, in the lore, the Mechanicus don't hold flesh to any high regard. It's not like we're precious. If I lost a limb, I'd be like, that sucks. In the 41st millennium, they're like, please take it off me so I can replace it with like a robot one. And when you start, these guys are organic.
Oh wow.
But throughout the game, if you find a cool power claw, your guys will be more than happy for you to remove one of their arms and put that there. They said one of the hardest things to implement was the ability to chop the lower torso off of one of your guys and replace it with spider legs. Because he was like, we spent so much time creating these like 3D models of people, but now we have to add spider legs. So it's very early, but I'm really excited to play more of this. XCOM was my jam. Warhammer's my jam. Any Warhammer fan is probably going to love this. I hope it follows similar trends of other Warhammer games, that it can be accessible enough for people to get into the hobby.
It looks promising, and I'm sure the Warhammer fans will be very vocal when it's out, whether they like it or not.
Oh, they always are.
Yeah, and we don't currently have a release date, is that correct?
They've told me end of 2018.
Okay,
that
so
nothing
not a specific release date,
exact that. But I have spared you all the really, really nerdy questions.
But you can hit Dave up on Twitter.
Oh yeah, I'm a regular Dave. If you want to know all the nerdy stuff, tweet me or leave it in the comments.